Hi everyone, and welcome to the seventh Craft and Cook show. I hope you're all well. It's early Monday morning and we're getting our filming done first thing today at home for what I'd like to cook for you, and then we're going to pop down to the studio because today is another of those days where there's lots and lots of samples and things I want to work with, and I think it would have taken a semi-trailer to bring everything home that I need to work with today. So we're going to make up a little recipe, and it's going to be one of those nice ones that we can pack up and take down to the studio to have for morning tea. And the recipe that we're doing for this Craft and Cook show is a really nice, it's really a shortbread, but we're adding in chopped dark chocolate and some almonds as well, and then we're going to serve it up with some poached figs. So it's a little bit of an upgrade on your standard shortbread, and I'm sure again it's going to be one of those recipes that you'll be able to mess around with, have some fun with, and put you in good stead for the summer ahead. So let's get started. What I've got already in my bowl for you this morning is some butter and some caster sugar. Now I've already got in there, it's actually 85 grams of butter. You can up it a little bit, it's going to change the texture of the shortbread a little, but I like to stick to that. It just means it's a lot messier when we actually come to knead it into the shape that we need. We've got 1/4 cup of caster sugar, and into there we're going to add some honey. If you've got a really strong flavoured honey, this is a great time to grab it out and use it because the flavour of the honey comes through in the shortbread mix. So we're going to add about a tablespoon, and I say about, you can measure it out if you like, but I'm going to wing it this morning and just put that in there like that. I love these ones that you just have to upend it and not use the swivel stick to get it out. Okay, so that's in there, and then we're going to give it a mix. Now, I could get the big mixer out and impress you with the KitchenAid, but it's only a really small mix, so we only need to use our little hand mixer for this today. So we'll give this a little bit of a mix up till it's nice and creamy. There we go, so you can see that's come up nice and fluffy because my butter was nice and soft when I started. Always an important thing. Now I'll grab a knife out and clean these off because I am not going to let Kate lick the beaters this morning. She's grown up now. She doesn't need to lick the beaters. Ooh. When we get to the meringue or the raspberry souffle, then you may lick the beaters. Okay. Now into this we're going to add just a teaspoon of vanilla, and a pinch of salt, also known as a shaker salt. And we'll just give this a little bit of a mix up with the knife, and then our wet mix is ready to go. And you'll enjoy making it because you can smell the honey coming through. It's lovely. Right, then we need to do our dry ingredients. And you can see me here, I'm reading off the old recipe card out of our original recipe book from when we used to have our quilt shows. I found 3 errors in this recipe typed up, so if you've managed to make this from one of the old books, well done, because you would have had a little bit of guesswork going on. I promise I'll get it right this week. Okay, we need to add a cup of plain flour, just like that, and we're going to sieve it, and then because it is a shortbread we need some corn flour in there as well with this recipe, and we're just going to add 2 tablespoons. There we go, so we'll give that a sieve. And of course, you're going to be able to add whatever spices and things you want in there. You could be adding cinnamon, lots of different things to give it a different flavour each time that you make it. Into there as well, I've got ready 100 grams of ground almonds. So we'll pop those in. See, I've got the flash bowls out today, so it looked a bit more professional. Then we're going to add, oh yum yum, 100 grams of dark chocolate. So I'm hoping you've already got some of this in the cupboard and that you haven't eaten it at 9 o'clock at night when you were desperate for something sweet while watching television. You know how we do that? We say we're not going to buy any treats for the cupboard this week, and then we end up hoeing into the cooking chocolate. It's true. All right, then I've also got about 40 grams of almonds. Now you can choose what you want to do with your almonds. You can use roasted ones chopped. You can use them with their skin still on. I've grabbed some slithers that I just had in the pantry that have got the skin still on, and we're going to chop those up quite finely so that, I'll just move that so you can see what I'm doing. Just quite finely. You can see I had a head start because it had already been sliced. I think you could get away with any different types of nuts in this recipe for this particular bit, but always run with those almonds for the ground almonds. Don't use another one, because you really are relying on a lot of the fat that comes out of the ground almonds to give it some moisture and some texture. You'll see soon it's a really rough mix when you knead it all together. I can't speak this morning, so I've only had half that cup of coffee. Okay, girls, we've done that bit. Now we'll pop this in with our other dry ingredients. And before you ask, yes, it does freeze very well. That's another great thing. So now what I want to do is just give all of this a bit of a mix, just to cut down our work once we get it into the butter mix. There we go, all done. I'm already thinking about adding other things. Oh, glazed ginger or something would be really nice. So you can see we've only got that much in wet mix, and we've got all of this with our dry mix, so it is going to come up quite crumbly. And I'll just pour all that in there. And we need to give it a good old mix. Now, while I'm doing this, I will confess, this morning I decided to make a batch up early, so I've got that whole, here's one I prepared earlier. So I made one up and came up with a great idea. Actually, I'm going to show you for shaping it. Put the timer on, then went back to the bathroom, fluffed around with my hair, put my makeup on, got sidetracked ironing some pre-shaped pieces for our leftover show next week, and ended up with burnt shortbread. So this is the second time I've made it today. So now I kind of know what I'm doing. All right. So you can see that slowly all coming together. Now it's time to get my hands in. Unfortunately, my rings are off because it was very humid on the weekend and there was a lot of gardening going on. So they're still sitting on my bedside table. So they're not going to end up full of shortbread dough. There we go. So that's all come together quite nicely, and then what we're going to do is just flour our board lightly. So I do apologise, this is a third week in a row that you've had a messy recipe to make up. I promise we'll have a very pristine, clean one with no kneading next week. Oh, that's not true. Next week will be leftover week. No, that's not true. Week after. We're going to do this again next week. I've got another idea. Okay. So I'll move that bowl over there near Kate. And just give this a little bit of a knead. But that's come together really nicely. Now, the fun bit, also known as the messy bit, the fun bit, is getting it into the shape that we want. And I want to end up with a disc that's about 24 centimetres. So again, if you, like we've done before, if you pull your springform pans or your cake tins out of the cupboard, we'll be able to use one of those as a guide. So what I thought, instead of just drawing it on this morning, we will shape it straight into the inside of one of my springform pans. So I've closed up the spring so it's all tight, and then what I'm going to do is pop it in here. Oh, you know what we'll do first, girls? I might just oil it, Kate. 2 seconds. I'll just go in. Just because I'm doing this little trick with the pan, I don't want it to stick when I pull the springform off. So I'm going to pop this in here, and then I'm going to press it out into the edges of the springform pan. If you find, oh, it's going to move around a bit, but you'll be right. If you find that your fingers are sticking, just wet them a little bit with warm water and they won't stick. There we go. Kate's asking if I need the oven. No. I'm going to turn the oven on in a minute because this goes into the fridge for 25 minutes. It's got to get really nice and chilled before it goes in the oven. So we'll pop it in there and then we'll pop our oven on. And I know the oven then will be ready and we're good to go. All right, so that's done, and it's all, I'll lift this up so you can see. I'm sure you'd all like me to do a really tidy, fancy, smooth, surfaced recipe soon. Look how rustic that looks. See that in there? Okay, so that's out to the shape of the springform, and then all I'm going to do is release the springform, and I've got my shape that I want. So that is way easier than trying to roll it out with a rolling pin. The rolling pin is sitting here, but I haven't used it, so this way I think works really well. Okay, so once that's done, I'd love you just to sprinkle your knife without hurting yourself with a little bit of flour, and then we're going to score it. And this is where you decide how picky you're going to be, because where you score it is how big the pieces are going to be. So I think we'll go into 8 this morning. But if you really wanted to go to town, you could go to 6. There we go. And that's just going to help us break it like a shortbread when it's cooked. Okay, so there you go, all done. So I'm going to pop this in the fridge now for about 25 minutes. I want it to be really, really chilled, just like a normal shortbread. Because of the honey and because of the dark chocolate, you want them to set up really nice and firm before it goes in the oven so that they don't burn, and also so that the shortbread keeps its shape. And then it's going to go into the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. And also I'm going to set my oven at 170 because the oven I'm using at the moment is a little pocket rocket. It's really, really hot with a strong fan. So all I can say is the first time that you make it, keep an eye on it, because I don't want you to burn your shortbread a little bit like I did this morning. All right, so I'll pop this in the fridge and then we'll do the next step. All right, I've got our figs ready for the next step of our recipe. I love figs, and probably my most recent fond memory is eating them fresh off my uncle's tree up at Ardlethan in New South Wales. But of course, dried figs are great to have all the time in the cupboard, and you can use them for lots of different things with great recipes as well, putting them into cakes and biscotti, lots of different things, not just a fruit cake. So I've bought these ones just in a pack from the supermarket. I think they were Angus Park brand ones, and they're quite small, but they're going to serve us really well for what we're doing today. And all I want to do is just halve them. We're going to poach them, so I just want to open them up so that the juice that we're putting in there gets into our figs. And look, I could do a heap because they'll keep in the fridge once they're poached really, really well, but I might just do enough for a generous serving for Kate and I this morning, and then maybe some for tonight to put with our shortbread. Okay, one of the things too that you can do with figs, if you can get larger ones that are dried, is my my favourite thing is to actually cut them open at the top and fill them with mascarpone cheese. They're absolutely delicious. And then if you also want to take it a step further, poach them in some dessert wine or some sweet sherry first, or some port or brandy, and then stuff them and just sit them in a dish full of brandy or whatever you've marinated them in, and they are absolutely divine, almost like a sweet antipasto if you like to have with some cheese after dinner. So anyway, sorry, back to this recipe. We're going to pop these just in a small saucepan. Sorry Mum, I did not get the cleaner out and clean my steel saucepans before doing this on the weekend. So please forgive me, and I will get them cleaned before Christmas. Okay, so you can see I've just popped them in there, and then we are going to use sweet sherry. And when you do this here, oh, it's a flashback to being a little kid and allowing to have a little nip when you're at birthdays and things at my grandmother's. So always have the sweet sherry in the cupboard. It's not just for drinking, it's for marinating. What do I marinate with sweet sherry? Oh, those really nice old-fashioned Chinese recipes that we have in the old Woman's Weekly Chinese cookbooks and things. A lot of those have got sweet sherry in them, and I love using it for that. Of course, it goes in the trifle with the sponges at the bottom. That's a thing. That's an absolute must. But I find more and more that I've got it back in the cupboard, I'm using it a lot. Okay, we're going to pop these on the stove and give them a little bit of love and a little bit of warmth so that they seep up all of that sweet cherry. I'm just warming these up now. You can see the steam coming off, and they're going to soften up really nicely in the sweet sherry. Obviously I'm going to be cooking off most of the alcohol, but the flavour will stay there, and they're going to be nice and soft and syrupy. So I think now I've simmered them for a couple of minutes. I'm going to turn the stove off and just let them cool slowly on the stove, and a lot more of the liquid will evaporate off, and they're going to be perfect and syrupy to serve with our shortbread. Okay, so our shortbread now has had 25 minutes in the fridge and it's nice and chilled, so I'm going to pop it in the oven for 20 minutes and then we're going to head off to work. Okay, I have my stewed figs ready to go, but first of all, the nerve-wracking bit, we have to cut our shortbread. So you can see it's come up really nice and brown, and I'm just ever so carefully, oh, it's still nice and warm, going to cut across. If I tried to cut it like a cake, as you would know if you've made a disc of shortbread, it's going to snap because it's quite a short texture. So we'll go across in quarters first, and then we can cut down a slice like that. Now, oh, look at that, the chocolate's all nice and gooey. So I'm going to serve up 2 pieces because I'm sure Kate and I will fight otherwise over who gets what. Okay, so I've popped those on there. Now for our figs. So we'll just serve up some of these on the side here to start with. And then we'll pop on some Greek yogurt. Now I was going to use mascarpone cheese, which is really nice and sweet, and I actually couldn't get any yesterday. But now I think the Greek yogurt will be really good because the figs are sweet and the shortbread is sweet, so this will balance it out. And if you want it to look really flash, all you need to do, just pour a little bit more of that sherry syrup over the top like that. So there you go. So that's all done and finished and ready to serve up. Now when we come back to our leftover show next week, I've got a couple of other ideas we can use with this, one including white chocolate, and I've got this beautiful recipe for spiced poached fruit that is also going to hold you in good stead. It's a little bit more complicated than just popping the figs in the sherry, but it will add a really different element to lots of different cakes, so we'll do that next week. So Kate and I might just have a bite to eat and then we'll move on to some sewing. So we may have had more than one slice of our chocolate and almond shortbread, and it was very, very yummy. and now I'm all sugared up and ready to go to show you some Dresdens. So today, pointed Dresdens. Now I couldn't resist continuing the theme of the curves that we've had over the last few weeks. We're going to still work with some circles today, but now we're going to head on and do points as well. And for a lot of you, I know that points are a bit of a stress, particularly if you're needle turning them, even if you're paper piecing them, and we'll get to paper piecing in our next Craft and Cook show. But today we're going to do pointed Dresdens, and they are all done by machine. So you'll be able to do them super fast. If you are only a hand sewer, well, that's fine as well. Exactly what we're going to do by machine, you'll be able to do by hand. So the first one I want to show you is this one. And you can see here I've made a nice big cushion up with a pointed Dresden, and there are 20 points in this particular one. Now I will be honest, we've worked with this pattern as a whole theme for a whole new pre-cut program that's called designer blocks, and the pointed Dresden is the first one in this series. And I want to show you today lots of different ways that you can make up pointed Dresdens into different shapes, not necessarily into a circle, and different uses for them. So let me show you how this one works first, and then we can go from there. I've got some here that have been made up. I'll lay them down here and show you in different colours. So the one I just showed you has a mix of my Under the Australian Sun eucalyptus blossoms on it, but you can see from these ones here, they're what we call, if you want to be impressive, monochromatic. So they're all one colour. So this one's all red, and I've got one here that is all black. You see that there. And then I've got this one that's all green. So immediately if I lay all of these out together, you can see that even if I wanted to, I could mix all these colours together as well and have lots of different ones. The one thing you need to remember when you start working with Dresdens, whether it's with curved edges or points, is if you're going to use different fabrics, remember to think about the multiples that you can work with. So if I wanted to work with 3 different colours, it's not going to fit into my 20-point Dresden. I either need to work with 5 different fabrics, 4 different fabrics, or 2 different fabrics, or 10 different fabrics. Yeah, that's right, up to 20. But this wouldn't work. So if I wanted to, I could pull out the green and just do a really stunning one and combine the red and the black together. Or similarly, if I wanted to get really Christmassy, I could match in the red and the green. And I could add some gold and different colours in. It's really up to you, but the technique is really simple, so you'll be able to have a lot of fun having a play with it. Now, just to show you a couple of examples as well, before we get started on actually making up our pointed Dresdens. Here's another one here I want to show you. So this one, I have actually used 2, but I've left one hole for the middle, and then I've split the second one up and used it for the corners. So that's going to give me a really nice big table topper, if you like, and I really like the idea of sitting this on my dining table with a big bunch of flowers in the middle. Even a cake stand with the recipe we made today would look really stunning sitting right in the middle of this one. Now, one of the other ones is this one here. So instead of actually popping them into a circle and aligning all of the narrow ends together, here I've dovetailed them. So you can see I've got them facing in both different directions. Girls, look at that. I have actually used this one on the weekend, and I can see the salsa on it, but that proves that I do use my own work. So anyway, you can see here this makes a really funky table runner. But similarly, I could use this style of design on a sashing, so I could applique the actual strip onto a sashing in between blocks. And I could also use it for a border around a quilt. That would look really nice. So that's just another idea for you as well. The final idea that I'm going to play with before our next Craft and Cook show is with semicircles. So if I take you back to the red here, I've got 2 of them set ready to go, and I'm just going to pull out my completed red one as well. So you can see what I'm doing here. You're getting to the point where you can think, ooh, that would make a really funky table runner as well. Or I could flip them around the other way, and the seams on the 2 semicircles would be set into the edge, into the binding on a table runner. So that would be really nice as well. And you could just play with so many different combinations with it. What I'm going to do with these 2 semicircles before next week's leftover show, I'm going to use one of them as the pocket on the front of a bag, probably with some black. So I think I've got some here, I can just show you. So there's just a little bit of dust on that side, we'll flip it over. So if you can imagine, that is going to form a pocket on my bag, and that will be the base of my bag, and I'll have the top of the pocket about here. And then on the other side of the bag, I'm going to use another one, and that is going to be my flap. So I may curve it or use a straight edge, but that will be a flap on the other side of the bag. And that's going to look really, really cute, quite dramatic, but I think it's worth a go, so I look forward to showing you that one when it's finished. So, how do we make our pointed Dresdens? Well, I'm sure a lot of you have got Dresden templates sitting in your sewing room. You may have used them once or twice and they're just sitting there. So let's get them out and have a play. Now, I've got one here. We've especially made one up that's called Designer Block. Oh, can you see that? Hang on, if I do that, you can see it. So this is Designer Block, or Designer Blocks with a Dresden star. So we've named these, and we've got these available that are going to give you exactly the same size that I'm using. Alternatively, you may have a big Dresden wedge sitting in your sewing room, so you can pull that out and use it as well. This one's marked up with lots of different lengths on it as well, so that's going to help you out as well. What you need to do first of all is just check your wedge that you've got and make sure you know how many wedges it's going to give you in a circle, because they are all different. This one is 20, the same as my Designer Block one, but some will be 16, some will be 8. They'll all be different. I'm going to show you how to make your own in a little while, but just be sure to check that before you start cutting into your fabric. So let's make up some Dresden wedges. Now I'll grab one of my packs here. So this is one of my Designer Block packs here, and we've got these already with 5.5 inch strips. So they're a little bit wider than what you're going to need for your wedges with our template, but it just means you've got lots more room. And look, it's even got instructions in case I forget how to do it today. Oh, with lots of examples on the back. Okay, so I'll set that aside just in case I need to read my own pattern. Over there. So I'll pull these out and pull out one of our strips. My girls are going to kill me because we need to make up a lot of these, and I'm actually cutting one up to show you today. So that means one more we have to cut this week. Alright, so all I need to do is pop my template over my fabric and actually use it like my ruler. Now you can see here that this piece is actually slightly wider than what I need. So one little time-saving exercise for you, measure the length of your Dresden template that you're going to use first. So this one is 5 inches. So I can actually cut down my strip so that it is exactly 5 inches wide. And that's just going to save me a lot of effort. Okay. So that's just trimming off 1/2 inch. I always like to leave a little bit more in our pre-cut packs, just in case they fray or you decide to wash them first or something. So watch this. I'm going to double this over because time is precious and we really want to get these made. So now I can just sit my template over the top, and I've got 4 thicknesses here. So I can cut through there, and then I'll carefully turn that around and cut from the other side. And there we go. So I've got 4 ready to go straight away like that. So you can get these cut out and ready to sew in no time. These templates do include the seam allowance as well. So you don't need to worry about adding that. But of course, always remember that if you're using your own templates, to make that decision early on if you still need to add a seam allowance or not. So there's some of those cut out, and they're going to be pretty much exactly the same as what you can see here in this Dresden cushion that I've got. So before we get the sewing machine out, let's have a think about what else we can do. Let's pull out, you know I love these, my ombre. So I can't resist. We have to do one of these as well. So again, I will line it up. Now what I might do this time is just make it slightly bigger. So I'll lay out this big template that I've got here. We might go up to, we'll cut them at 6. So I'm measuring here, that's at 4 inches and it's 10 at the top. So I'm going to cut through there like that. So I'll lay my ruler over and just whiz up there like that, trim off that excess. And then we can turn this round, and I will use my Dresden from the 4-inch mark up. Now if you get a little bit anxious about cutting against the edge of your template, you don't need to. You can actually just draw it up with a pen first and then cut. So I'll show you. I'll just mark this one down here with black. And I'm not worried about the black. We're not going to see it. So I'll do that. Or you can see here. See this, girls? You go the other way. Go this way. Look at that. Super efficient use of your fabric. Of course, if you start with a smaller Dresden template, like mine, you can also draw it on with an iron-off pen and just add an extra ½ an inch when you're cutting parallel to the lines that are drawn, so that it will make it wider or longer, even just using one of the small templates. Okay, so let's have a look what we have scored here. I love this, look at this. We're going to get all these different colours that have come out of the one strip. So what I can do, I can mix them up, or I can actually run them in the order that they were printed onto the fabric. Now for me to do this, I'm going to go back and actually cut a couple more so that I've got the whole story of all the colour shift from one side of the fabric to the other. So I'll pop that one that way. Is it going to fit? Oh, look, you know what? I'm going to pop that in there. I bought a new iron that beeps. Didn't think that one through. Okay, so let's just cut these. I'm just going to use the wedge. If you find your wedges do slip a little bit, remember you can buy those little iron-on sticky sandpaper stickers that hold it. I know you're all now going to message me or email me and tell me about all the wonderful things you've found to stop your rulers sliding. And if you do, I'll pass it on. I don't actually have anything on mine, I probably should. But if you've got an idea, just let me know. Okay, so back to this. Oh, I do like this. So they would all shift around like that. So you're going to get this whole graduation of colour. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a really strong contrast when you finish coming around from where the fabric changes in colour from start to finish. So I would end up with this. So maybe we don't use it as a full Dresden. Maybe we do the dovetail thing, and that would look really good too. So let's just have a quick look. We'll go this way. So you can see how that's going to work. And as I said, you can do this or you can mix them all up. But the ombres are really, really going to be worth playing with to get different effects. So I'll lay that out like that. You can see what's going to happen. So I'm going to have a think about that, but I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to get them sewn so we can have a look. And again, I promise there'll be something in the leftover show to show you that I've made with them. So I think what we need to do next, first and foremost, is get out the sewing machine and get some of these Dresden sewn up for you. So machine's on, cameras are on, iron's still on. Oh wait, just in case he beeps again. And I've got my wedges ready to sew. Now I have popped a super duper bright purple in my machine so that you can see it, but also we're going to use it in a little while for another example. So what we're going to do, you don't need to mark these. If you've got a good 1/4 inch foot on your machine or a mark on your foot plate, you won't even need to mark these up. So what we're going to do is just fold them in half like that at the top, which is going to be the top, which is the wide end, and then the same at the narrow end, which is going to be the inside point, or the smaller one if you like. And we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam across both of those. I have put on my machine a 1/4 inch foot, but it's the funky Benina one. That's a number 57, so it's got the little guide on the side as well. And we'll just do a little finishing stitch. And we'll pull that out. So that's one side, or one end I should say. Look how bright that thread is. Okay, so that's one. Whoa. There you go. Can you see that okay? It's not. There you go. I just didn't quite want to focus on my very bright thread. And then we'll do the other end. Now it's up to you whether you do a finishing stitch or a little reverse stitch. You probably want just a little one, either or. And I'll trim this off. Now, you would have just seen from that if you wanted to, if you love chain sewing, just line them all up and do them one after the other for the whole 20 for a Dresden plate, or as many that you're doing, and then you can come back and snip between them afterwards. So there we have sewn at both ends, and here is what we're going to do. We're going to open up that little seam there like that, and we're going to turn it through. Same with the other end. Flatten out your seam. And there's the other end. And that, my friends, is one pointed Dresden wedge. Done. That is your point. That's all you have to do. No shaping or anything. If anything, if you're using a thick fabric or you're doing a larger one, you might just use a little tailor's awl or just a little sade stick or a crochet hook to push that point out at each end. But that is all you need to do. And then you're going to give them a press. Now when you give them a press, just remember to keep that vertical seam right in the middle of the Dresden. Otherwise, you can end up with it going, I'll show you, going a little askew. So you want him right in the middle, top and bottom, like that. Okay, so here's where I get to say, here's some I've prepared earlier. And these are some black ones, some extra ones that I had ready to go. So I can show you what we're going to do with these. All we're going to do is line up both their raw edges. Sorry, right sides together, line them up so they're ready to sew. And you want to line up this end and this end. Use some pins, please use some pins if you want to. I'm going to wing it now for the purpose of showing you. But of course pinning's a great idea so that you get them in the right order. So I'll just do a little stitch, a little reverse to secure it, and then we'll just whiz down that side. And that's done. If you're doing a traditional Dresden where all of your centres all come in really close together, you do want to push all of your seam allowances and iron them all in one direction so they kind of spiral around and you can get that really nice flat edge or in the middle or point in the middle. But with these, because they're not going to all meet down in the middle, they're still quite separate. You can just open these out. And opening out is going to give you a really nice finish. So all I'm going to do is press them so that my seam allowances are open. And that is all there is to creating your piece Dresdens. that's it. So you can put them together in any order that you like. So if I just take you back to this one here and show you these again, you can see that that's all I've done is sewn them all together with their seam allowances open. Simple as that. So what I want to do now is take you on to a different idea of how to make your own Dresden templates and do a little bit of fussy cutting as well. I'm just having a look at these, sorry, we get set up to go and then I go, oh, what about this and what about this? And I run off and get other stuff out of the warehouse. And it grows from a 20-minute segment to an hour. But I wanted to show you this. So have a look here on the back of our designer block pack. See this one here? That's the one I was talking about, that you could easily make two, and you can get two out of our designer block packs easily. But you have a whole one in the middle and then these two half semicircles. And I was just thinking about, well, okay, what happens when we fussy cut? Not just what I was going to show you, but a couple of other ones. So if you have a look here, I've grabbed my big Dresden plate template, but I've also grabbed mine because all I would need to do with mine is extend the sides out so they were wide enough. But have a look at this. If I just lay this over some Under the Australian Sun stripe, I can get this particular part of the design out, and I might extend it just a little bit, but it doesn't have to be much. But the thing that you've got to watch if you do this, girls, is remember that 1/4 of an inch of this design is going to get folded over into the seam allowance. So if you do decide to go in and choose different little bits of designs for fussy cutting, always remember that you're going to have some of it come down into a point and you're going to lose that top 1/4 of an inch. So everything I've shown you up to now has been done with, you know, with tone on tones and small prints. If you want to have a play with fussy cutting, please do, but just remember a little bit of trial and error. I can see here I would probably need to move that template right up to there so that I've got plenty of room for my seam allowance here, and when my little point comes down, that little part, my little pea flowers, are going to be in a really good spot on the wedge. And as I'm showing you this, I've just noticed on my hand there is still paint from the weekend. I painted that window. You know how in the Craft and Cook leftover shows I'm making the blind for the bathroom? I got the window painted on the weekend. I'm finishing the blind tomorrow to show you next week. So sorry about that. Okay, so that's just one little trick there, and I can see that maybe over here, yeah, I might need to move, can you see that okay? I might need to move the center over a little bit. I'm not going to sit it right in the middle of my stripe, but I'll bring it over here and I can have those little courier bells sitting perfectly in the middle of a Dresden wedge, and that little bit of gold from that division will sit in the seam allowance. So I guess what I'm saying is, if I bought enough of this fabric, I could have all different Dresdens, in fact 5 from this design, from all the different flowers. And you have a look at the size. I mean, you get quite a big Dresden. So I can get a quilt out of it. I can fussy cut from each of the different parts of the stripe, make up 5 different Dresdens, and then use the stripe again for the sashing in between the blocks. Can you hear? I really need to do it now. I'm going to have to do it. I'll have to do it. Kate, add it to the list. I have to do it. Hold it done. Anyway, I wanted to show you that. The original one that I was going to show you was Melba, because this is a little bit more obvious in what you can do with fussy cutting. So have a look at these. Look, 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 look. I can sit the top of my waratah right in the middle of that wedge. Now, as I said, I'm going to lose some, but if I sit my wedge right over where those courier bells meet in the middle, that will be my 1/4 inch. I'll have a 1/4 inch showing, and then my little wedge is going to come down. It's going to encapsulate the head of my waratahs right in the middle. So I can get one that way, and then I'll be able to get one that way. And then I may alternate with other parts of the design, so I might come down and actually use the Sturt Desert pea flowers in the middle of some of my wedges. Look, if you get obsessed with fussy cutting, like many of us do that do English paper piecing or applique, it's just another way of having some fun with your obsession. So pull out your fabrics, have a look and see what you've got that's going to work really well for some pointed Dresdens. Now, what if you don't want a 20-point Dresden? Well, as we've talked about before, there's 360 degrees in a circle. You just need to split that down into an even number of angles so that you can get a perfect circle with all of your wedges. Now, I'm going to give you a really simple one to start with. If you want to get out the protractor and the compass and everything, you can. Or you may have a Dresden template in your sewing room that actually is for a 16 or a 12-point Dresden. And if you do, then you've got a great start. The first one I want to do for you today, though, is just a really big 8-point Dresden. So to do that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab my ruler. Now you can do this by folding or by drawing, but I think I will do mine with drawing to show you. You'll be able to see it better. Kate, while I'm doing this, look, I'm going to put my head under here. Kate is banned from showing my head my head with the overhead camera. If you're watching this close to filming, you'll understand why. If you're watching it late 2020 or any time in the future, you'll go, what are you talking about? We're in lockdown and there are no hairdressers at the moment. So I know I'm supposed to be wearing the Regrowth with Pride, but it's getting beyond a joke and I'm still 6 weeks off a haircut. So there's no overhead of my head today, and every time I look down I think, oh, there's a lot of grey in there. Alright, so I'm going to stand back and draw a line straight across a big piece of paper, and then you want across the other way. Line up your lines of your ruler with the line you've already drawn, and we'll go that way. And then we want to go into 8s. So we did this the other week with our Dresdens, but to do this, I'll just move these out of the way, I've got my big ruler out. I'm going to sit my ruler so that it crosses over. What am I trying to do to show you here? There we go. So there is lines on the ruler for 45-degree angles, but if it messes with your head a bit, if you're left-handed like me, that can happen with a right-handed ruler. All I do is sit it across roughly on an angle, but then I can see that all of the crossovers of the lines on my ruler are all lined up with the line that I've got drawn on my paper. And then I know it's a 45-degree angle. Okay, like that. So this time I just want to work with 8 wedges. So they're going to be big chunky wedges, but that's what I want to use. So this is going to be the shape of my wedge. Now we obviously know that we don't want to come right down to the center on these. We want our point, and it's going to be up to you how big you want your wedges to be. Now I want quite stout, fat wedges, so I'm going to mark up 2 inches from the center, and again 2 inches from the center here, and I'm going to draw a line across like that, and that's going to be the narrow end of my wedge. It's going to be quite a different shape to the one that we have already done. So I'll pop the paper aside, pull out my rotary cutter that has been demoted to paper. Kate's been, have you been using the rotary cutter or the guillotine?
What?
Kate's been cutting up paper with this one.
Oh, no.
No?
She did. Guillotine.
When I'm not looking, she may have been. Oh, I have. But I've been using a paper blade in the warehouse. We're busy setting up all of our shelving for our new website at the moment. Everything has to have a home. So we've got labels everywhere. It's supposed to make our life easier. I'm sure it will. Okay, so that's going to be the base of our template. And you can see how different it looks to our little one. Look at that. Ew, it's very, very different. This is going to be fun. All right, I'm going to mark this onto a larger piece of paper now, And I know it all sounds really fiddly, but you know what? It's good fun, and it keeps you really with it, with your maths and everything. Alright, so I'm just marking the points of what we've played with so far. So if I take that away, you can see where we got to. So if I line these up, nearly picked up the rotary cutter instead of the pen. So now I'm going to draw a big long line that way. So if I was to take this right down to a point here, folks, that would give you a 45-degree angle. We'll use my little line to draw across the bottom. Okay, so it's big, it's really big. So what are we going to do with this one? I'll show you. I'll just chop this off up here. I'm not sure how big we want it yet. Actually, Miss Kate, do you know where the template plastic is? On the shelf down the bottom of your new, under the scarves, there's big sheets of template plastic. So, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to lay some template plastic over the top. Let's have a look. Oh, he's huge. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is that I want to be able to create a template that out of plastic, so I can use it for fussy cutting. There's no point in having one out of paper because I can't see where I'm going. Okay, and we'll just draw those up, and then I can cut them out. Then I can cut it out and we can have a play. Can I have a Sharpie too, Miss Kate? We're really ad-libbing now. Sharpies are a precious thing here when we do so much mail order for the tough bags. Thank you. That's better. There we go. Right. I won't cut it out yet. Let's have a look. So I don't know if you guessed which fabric I was going to get out. But, well, hopefully you guessed right. So I've pulled out my Summer Palace collection border stripe, because this one has got nice big motifs on it that are just going to be so much fun for fussy cutting down. So if I lay this out, which way? Go this way. And you can see what I can do. So if I take this and lay it over the top of some of my motifs, we can see what we're going to get in the center. So if I really want, for example, that little pot that's there, then I might need to take my wedge up just a little bit higher, because when I come down on this 90-degree angle, actually I think that'll be fine. He's going to fit in there. And then I'm going to have my little point down the bottom. So I think about there is going to be terrific. So we'll just cut this quickly out, because I know you just want to see the result. I'm using template plastic because it was handy, but if you've got any x-ray film or some of those clear book covers that we've talked about before, then you can use one of those. Or with this sort of thing where you're really experimenting, don't draw and cut up all your fabric first. Do one first and make sure that it works before you cut into everything, because I'd hate you to go, I'm not happy with that at the end. All right, so that vase would have worked, and then let's just check this one. Oh yeah, this one's going to be really cool as well. So I'll get that centered on there. Now let's draw this on. It's so big, we're going to be able to have a look. Here we go. Designing, they're a bit blunt, those scissors. Luckily, the rack with the scissors is hanging right next door because the iron. Okay, the other iron's coming back. There we go. If you have one of those border prints, who does them? Jason in the beginning does those beautiful border prints with the sprays of flowers that come up. That would be a great fabric to buy for fussy cutting because you've got all of the repeats in it, a bit like Under the Australian Sun, but it runs the other way down the bolt. Okay, here we go. Fruit of the pudding, folks. Let's see how well this one works. Because it is much wider at the top, I'll just pop a couple of pins in there and then a couple down the other end. You know, there's one thing I really want you to remember when you are sewing these. A little bit of respect is probably a good idea because this is cut on the bias. So when you do come to piece your wedges together, particularly the bigger ones, and if you're using a softer fabric, do pin them because there's going to be a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a movement because they're cut on across the grain. Okay, so we'll just have a go with this. I left the purple in the bobbin and then I put a white in the top. I don't know why I bothered, but there we go. If you have freaking out at me driving over my sewing over my pins, this little 1/4 inch foot with the guide on it, it's hinged. I'll show you. Can you see that? It moves. Push it up like that. It moves. So it will actually sit in the groove of the feed dogs and it will go up and over the pins. So you don't need to take the pins out as you go. So that's one end. We'll just do the other one just to be sure. Put your foot down, Leesa. So I want to do this one now too. Oh goodness, there'll be so much to do. Right, here you go. So remember, this one's really cool because we've designed our own template just with a piece of paper. We're going to press that seam out. Ho ho. How's that? Oh, flipped it, girls. That could have easily not worked. But I wouldn't have been too stressed. I just would have gone back and had another play. Okay, so that's how that wedge is going to look. Now let me just turn this off and I'll pop my trusty machine down on the floor and grab the ironing board because that little iron has been begging to be used all the way through. Keeps beeping at me. Now remember what I said, you need to make sure that you get these seams in the center. And if that means actually measuring across here to do that, please do so that you are right centered. So I'll just give that a press. Right, and then our other little end here. Flip him over and there is one wedge. So I think again what I want to do with this is actually go through and do 8 of each of the different motifs of the vases. This could be something actually I could put in our bedroom and it will follow on the theme that we're doing in the ensuite, but I'm really happy with that and that'll be me this afternoon having a little bit more of a play. Now there's one more thing I want to show you, and that's what happens if you want to do a point but without it being a wedge if you just want to do a straight one. And I've got designs on a little evening bag, so I just wanted to show you these. So these are just beautiful, beautiful Indian silks that we've got in. And you see the shimmer on that, so they're shot silk. And they're just absolutely scrummy. But they're very fine, so they need a little bit of love and a little bit of stabilisation. So here's what we're going to do. With these, I'm going to add whisper weft to the back. Now I could add an iron-on violin. Two reasons for not doing that. We can't get any due to the pandemic at the moment, except for black that I've got out there. But also the whisper weft's great because then you still get a bit of movement because it's woven. So I'm going to back all of my pieces of precious silks with whisper weft. And one little thing too, I know what you're going to say, you can't hit the silk with a hot iron to adhere the whisper weft to the back. You're absolutely right. You're going to need to put a Teflon ironing mat over the top, and that's what I've used, one of these. You can see this one's well loved as opposed to ones in the website. So I popped that over the top while I was ironing the whisper weft onto the back, and then I could use quite a hot iron. Remember to keep it dry, won't you? Don't use steam, or it's really going to upset the silk. So what I'm going to do with these is a little evening bag, probably a little clutch, and instead of the pieces being wedges, I'm going to keep them straight, almost like the shape of a pencil if you like, and then I'm going to pop them onto black with a little zip at the top. I've got some little charms and beads and things too from our supplier for all of our new little goodies, our braids and things from India. So just to show you, if you're going to do that, you're going to keep it really, really simple. Now I want my bag to be about 10 inches high, so I'm going to want my little pencil sticks or straight, it's almost like a picket fence really, straight pieces to end just before the top. So I'm going to cut these down so they are about 8 inches. So I've got a piece here that's 8, and then I think I want them to end up about 1.5 inches wide. So I'll cut a piece that's 2 inches. So it's 2 by 8. That's what I've got, this piece here. And then all I'm going to do with this piece is do exactly the same thing at one end. I'll sew across here, and what will happen is I will still get, actually I'll pop a pin in to show you. You'll need to go that way to show you. So what will happen when I turn this through later, you see that? I'm going to get my little point at the top. So you can imagine this would be really cute to use for picket fences. I've got one I want to do. We don't have time for it today, but I wanted to show you that, and I will definitely get these done with some embellishments onto a little bag with some black, and then we can come back and look at some other things that we can do. So I hope that you've really enjoyed what we've been through today, and that you'll have a go at making some pointed Dresdens, either with one of our templates, one that you've got in the sewing room, or now you know how to make one up yourself. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you on next week's Leftover Show. Masses again to show you next week. You're keeping me more honest. I've never finished off so many things in a year before in my life, I don't think. So there'll be bags, more Dresden work, and some more recipes to show you. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.